In a new interview, the president setting his sights on the oil in Iran, saying, "My favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran, but some stupid people back in the US say, why are you doing that? But they're stupid people." Trump noting that seizing Iran's oil would likely involve seizing Karg Island, which handles nearly all of Iran's oil exports, but that would require US troops on the ground.
I would venture to say that the president of the United States, who got goaded into fighting a war that even George W. Bush wasn't stupid enough to fight, makes him the stupid one, but I digress. Now look, what you heard from Trump is precisely why the president has amassed thousands of additional American soldiers in preparation for what I believe is going to be a ground invasion. Now, there are denials that we're gonna invade Iran, but I wouldn't believe those denials. Everything that has hinted toward war has led to war with this administration. The military assets that Trump and his administration decided to build up off the coast of Venezuela, what did you think that was for? It was obviously to carry out the operation that he carried out. Now, in that case, it was pretty quick, and we haven't suffered any consequences of literally kidnapping the leader of a sovereign country yet. But Iran is very different. It's a country of 92 million people. Iran has been preparing for the war we're currently involved in for many decades. And here we are finding ourselves in a disastrous stalemate situation where all you see from Trump so far is escalation. So are we gonna put boots on the ground? It sure looks like it. Now, here's what we know so far about this troop buildup. So CENTCOM announced that the USS Tripoli with 3,500 additional service members and Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit have been sent over to that region. Another 1,500 soldiers from the Army's 82nd Airborne are also preparing to deploy. On top of that, there were 4,500 troops aboard the USS Gerald Ford. However, there's a big update with that ship. Some mysterious mishaps had taken place on that ship, apparently. And so they withdrew on March 23rd due to these so-called mishaps. Now, I say so-called mishaps because the way that US media reports on it, there was a random fire on the USS Gerald Ford. I mean, it just came out of nowhere. No, our soldiers are being attacked, obviously, because we have started a war with Iran that clearly we are ill prepared for. And then on top of that, there are about 50,000 American service members based in the Middle East. That's roughly 10,000 more than usual, according to the New York Times. Okay, so you get a sense of the buildup that the Trump administration has carried out. But you should keep these numbers in mind as we see the administration continuously escalate this war with Iran. Because if you can remember, we didn't win the war in Iraq, that illegal preemptive war that we engaged in 2003, or at least it's called a preemptive war, right? They didn't have weapons of mass destruction, we relied into it. That country did not have the military capability that Iran has. That country also didn't have the number of soldiers or the sheer population that Iran has. Iran is a population of 92 million people. Clearly, they're a lot more clever and a lot more sly. They have, thought this through and have decided to fight what's being referred to as an asymmetrical war, because while the US is using its military might, Iran is using economic strategic actions in order to bring a lot of pain, not just to the United States and Israel, to be fair, and also the GCC, the Gulf countries, but to the globe. We are entering a very serious oil crisis because of this war, and it's because Iran has a lot more leverage than I believe the Trump administration was willing to admit going into this. So all signs do point to Trump risking the lives of our soldiers in order to take Karg Island, right? So Karg Island is very important to the Iranians. Now, why do I say that? Well, around 90% of Iran's crude exports pass through it before tankers then travel through the Strait of Hormuz. The island is also said to have a loading capacity of roughly 7 million barrels per day. Now, another thing I want to just kind of remind you all about when you're comparing Iran to Iraq is that we sent hundreds of thousands of soldiers to Iraq. In the case of what we're doing in Iran, if we do put boots on the ground, Right now, we have 50,000 soldiers in that region ready to go. How are you gonna win a war with 50,000 soldiers when we couldn't even win a war with 250,000 soldiers against a much weaker country in Iraq in 2003? I don't know. I mean, maybe they know something I don't know. Maybe they're geniuses and everything that we're seeing play out, which has been pretty disastrous, is all a figment of our imaginations. Who knows? But if the plan is to use tens of thousands of soldiers for that kind of operation, to take over Karg Island, Trump is, again, in my opinion, and the opinion of actual retired military generals and colonels who I've been turning to for their expert analysis on this, Trump would be sending our service members into a death trap. Okay, so the US again invaded Iraq in 2003 with 250,000 soldiers. In this case, we don't even have 250,000 soldiers in that region. Iran is much more challenging than Iraq, and we lost that war. Iran is the third the size of the continental United States, so we're not talking about some small country that's easily taken over or dominated. Plus, Iran's military capability is obviously much more superior than Iraq's, which, by the way, Iraq has also joined this war. This has become a regional war. Iraq is on Iran's side. So congratulations, America. 13 US troops have already been killed as a result of this war against Iran, and at least 300 have been wounded. And a recent AP NORC poll found that 62% of respondents, meaning American voters, strongly oppose the use of ground troops in Iran. Only 12% are in favor. 12%, but Trump's gonna do it anyway because we don't actually live in a democracy. Nonetheless, Trump thinks that US troops invading and taking Karg Island will be easy.
The president saying of Karg Island, "I don't think they have any defense. We could take it very easily." On Air Force One Sunday night, he insisted a deal with Iran could be done soon.
They're agreeing with us on the plan. I mean, we asked for 15 things, and for the most part, we're gonna be asking for a couple of other things.
He says Iran has agreed to allow 20 more oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, a move he says that shows negotiations are going well.
And just to prove that they're serious, they gave us all these boats.
But Trump is refusing to rule out using ground troops as more US service members move into the region.
I just have lots of alternatives. We have tremendous numbers of ships over there. We don't need them all
because of the power. Oh, okay.
Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back.
There are no negotiations happening. Iran has repeatedly said, we are not interested in negotiating a peace deal or a ceasefire because we don't trust the Americans. Trump lied, not just once, but on 2 occasions, making it appear as though the US was engaging with the Iranians in good faith negotiations. And in the middle of those negotiations, he carried out the military equivalent of a sucker punch and attacked Iran. At first, last summer with the 12-day war, and now with the current disaster that we got dragged into. That's the reality. There is no peace negotiation happening right now at all. I know Trump would like to think that's happening because I think he realizes either deep down or maybe even consciously that he was played for a fool by Israel. And he got dragged into, again, a war that even George W. Bush wasn't stupid enough to engage in. But anyway, Iran isn't exactly shaking in fear. And here's how the Iranians have responded to the likelihood that they'll be seeing American soldiers on the ground very soon.
Trump, the president of the United States, has repeatedly threatened Iran with a ground operation and the occupation of certain islands in the Persian Gulf. There is no doubt that the President of the United States has become a pawn of the Prime Minister of the Zionist regime in the war of aggression against Iran, driven by pressure from the terrorist organization Mossad, exploiting his background in the Epstein case. Unfortunately, America's leaders have delegated command of the armed forces to someone whose erratic positions and dangerous, wrong-headed decisions have plunged the US military into a swamp of death. In response to Trump's recent threats of a ground operation or the occupation of any part of Iranian territory, which are nothing more than wishful thinking, we declare that the warriors of Islam have long awaited such actions. They will show that aggression and occupation lead only to the humiliating capture, dismemberment, and disappearance of the aggressors. American commanders and soldiers will become good food for the sharks of the Persian Gulf.
And it appears that the Israelis know that American soldiers will become good food for the sharks. Now, why do I say that? Because remember, this is a war that is being fought on behalf of Israel. We get nothing out of this war. We only suffer the cost, the burden of fighting this war on behalf of a foreign country that doesn't even respect us, number one. And not only are we going to lose, we've already lost soldiers, we've already lost human lives as a result of our involvement in this, right? So the real question is, well, are the Israelis going to send boots on the ground, right? Our special ally? Let's go to graphic 2 here, because it turns out Israel's Channel 12 says that in case of a US ground operation in Iran, Israeli soldiers will not be participating on the ground. Could it be because they understand the very real threat to human lives if a ground invasion actually takes place? Why would they want to expend their soldiers? Why not just expend the cannon fodder known as American service members? Anyway, now, who is Trump getting his advice from? You know, I mean, I'm sure he has some in his administration, like, for instance, Kane. Kane told him, this is a bad idea, don't do this, okay? They're not building nuclear weapons, we shouldn't get dragged into this war, it's gonna be a quagmire. He did it anyway, so who is he getting his advice from? Could it be blowhards like this guy?
But why would we need troops on the ground? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we wouldn't need 300,000 of them. It's this uranium too. We've got to get the uranium. If it cannot be destroyed, if it cannot be altered, we got to get it. For the reason I just said, you can make dirty bombs, and over time you can still make sophisticated missiles. So you need to get to the uranium.
How about you get to the uranium, bitch? How about that? How about you send your family members, people that you love and care about, over to Iran to get the uranium? How about you call for the Israelis to send the IDF to do it? Maybe the Israelis can take a little bit of a break from slaughtering children in Gaza and Lebanon, and maybe do something that they claim to really care about. Because I'm not worried about Iran's enriched uranium at all, at all. I'm actually worried about this country being torn apart by a war that doesn't benefit us and is being fought on behalf of a foreign country that has fully captured our government. That guy is such a piece of crap, I gotta say. I mean, it's amazing. You gotta get the uranium, it's not a big deal. You think the Iranians are stupid? So their enriched uranium is very likely buried very, very deep, okay? And not in one place. Do we know where it is? Do we have intel on that? Do we know exactly where our soldiers are gonna go and risk their lives in order to get the uranium that the Israelis are pretending to be concerned about, when in reality, all they want is regime change? That's what this has been about from the very beginning. They're not worried about Iran building nuclear weapons. That was a farce, total lie. They're not worried about anything other than the fact that Iran has been a major player in that region in pushing back against Israel and its expansionist project, okay? The Shiite Muslims in Iran, in Iraq, the Houthis in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon. These are individuals, these are groups that have been fighting Israel's aggression, and Israel would like to get rid of them as a result. That's what this is about. So why are we going to play this little game where we're pretending like, oh, we got to get the enriched uranium, and we're literally going to risk people's lives to do it? That's insane.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.